She ghosted you because something about the interaction made her feel like continuing wasn't worth it. Most men never find out why, so what they do is repeat the same mistake with the same woman and the next, wondering why this particular thing keeps happening to them. Now, if you've ever stared at your phone thinking, wait, everything was going on well, so what changed? This is a video that you absolutely need to hear and watch. Jessica OS here, welcome to the channel. We're going to go through 6 real reasons women ghost. Not the surface level excuses you see online, but the psychological triggers that make her disengage. And for each one, I'll show you exactly how to respond strategically so you stop losing momentum and start building attraction instead. I'm sure you'll like that. So well, if you're ready, let's jump right in. Reason 1, you came on too strong, too fast. You meet a woman, whether it's on a dating app, through friends, or even in person, and there's a spark. The conversation flows, she's responding, maybe even laughing, and you feel the rush. Now, here's where things start to go wrong. Instead of letting that spark build naturally, what you do, and the biggest mistake if you ask me, is trying to lock it in immediately. I'll share a personal experience I had many years ago that instantly killed the vibe in less than an hour of meeting this guy for our first date. So I'd met him in a corporate setting and we exchanged numbers. I actually found him quite charming, and so basically I agreed to go on a date with him. When the time came and we're sitting across each other, I started to lose interest fast. Why was that? This guy basically wouldn't stop talking about himself, his achievements, and then the conversation also quickly dovetailed into how I was his dream woman and how he was going to marry me, how many kids we're going to have, how he was going to make me the CEO of a business startup that he had begun, and how we would basically be the perfect power couple. It went on for a while. And all that time, I just sat quietly listening to him paint what my life would be like with him. This entire time, he didn't even ask me my thoughts on his proposals for kids, for business, for marriage, or whether I was talking to other people. He painted my life's picture for me without input. I'm sure you can tell where the story is going. Here's the part that actually troubled me the most. Now, before the night was over, he insisted on driving me all the way home, driving behind me as I drove ahead, even though I explicitly told him that this was not necessary. Mind you, I had just met this guy earlier in the week and was extremely uncomfortable letting him know where I lived, much less having him follow me across town to my home at night. That freaked me out. Needless to say, that was our first and last date. What did he do wrong, I hear some of you ask? Well, his planning too far ahead too soon, like talking about future kids, marriage, or anything that assumed that I was already locked in, is what was the turnoff. Because think about it, we met just a week ago. Up until then, we were perfect strangers. This created a very clear signal. He was already emotionally ahead of me. And the minute something like that happens, I'll instinctively pull back to recalibrate the dynamic. You see, attraction isn't just about liking someone. It's about discovery, curiosity, and gradual investment. When you come on too strong, you remove all of these 3. There's nothing left to discover because you've already revealed everything at once. There's no curiosity because your interest is fully obvious. There's no gradual investment because you've skipped straight to emotional availability even before the woman has earned it. So what happens? Her brain starts asking a different question. Not, do I like him, but why is he this invested already? And that question rarely works in your favor, trust me. Because early overinvestment usually comes off as lack of options, neediness, emotional impulsiveness, or worse, inexperience. Now, whether that's true or not is not the issue here. Perception, though, is what drives attraction. Tell me, if someone you barely knew started acting like you were already important in their life, how would you feel? I mean, flattered for a moment maybe, but then cautious. And that's exactly what I was experiencing with this guy. I mean, this guy could be a psycho for all I knew. Guys, if you recognize that you came on too strong, you need to resist the urge to correct it with more communication. In fact, what I would advise is that you pull back completely. Yes, give space as a reset, because the only way to restore balance is to remove the pressure that she's already feeling. If she reaches out again, don't go back to your old behavior. In fact, match her pace. Let the interaction breathe. Let her come towards you. Going forward, the mindset also has to change. You're not trying to secure her interest immediately. You're allowing it to build, okay? So don't rush that connection, just let it unfold. Because once again, the goal isn't to make her like you instantly. It is to give her a reason to keep coming back to you. Reason 2, you were too predictable and boring. So boring doesn't mean you're a boring person. It simply means your interaction with her lacked emotional stimulation. There's a difference. You could have an interesting life, a solid career, good values, but basically if the way you communicate feels repetitive, feels safe, feels predictable, the experience of talking to you becomes forgettable. And dating is driven by experience and not potential. Most conversations fall into this pattern. You ask her how her day was, she gives you a basic answer. You respond quietly, and then you ask another safe question. And on paper it may seem like good communication, but in reality, it feels like an interview. There's no emotional spike, for instance, and without emotional spikes, the brain loses interest. Attraction is built through emotional variation. That means moments of humor, curiosity, slight unpredictability, even a little bit of a challenge is necessary. If every interaction feels the same, she starts to categorize you quickly. Nice guy, easy to talk to, but nothing exciting. And once she puts you in that box, it's very hard to get out of it. Take note that you are most likely not the only conversation she's having in the moment. Somewhere else, there's probably some other guy who's making her laugh unexpectedly, saying something bold, teasing her just enough to create that tension, right? You're losing because your interaction feels flat in comparison. You're being too predictable if her responses are getting shorter. She stops asking you questions. She replies, but there's no enthusiasm behind her answers. You're the one who's always carrying the conversation every single time. And the biggest sign? You're thinking harder and harder about what to say, while she's putting in less and less effort. So how do you respond to something like this without digging a deeper hole? I say reset. Stop the predictable flow completely. Then, when you re-engage, shift the tone. Say something that breaks the pattern, something observational, slightly playful, maybe even a little bold. The truth is, not every conversation can be saved. If the dynamic has already gone flat for too long, sometimes the best move is to walk away. Because trying to revive dead energy often makes you look like you're chasing attention, and, well, doing that is the fastest way to lose respect. Women don't ghost men because they hate them. Now, this happens because they basically feel nothing. If your conversations start to feel like a routine instead of an experience, the outcome is already predictable, and she disappears. Reason 3, you gave off low value without recognizing it. So let's set this straight. Low value in dating doesn't mean you're broke, unsuccessful, or unattractive. It means your behavior signals lack of self-respect, boundaries, emotional control. That's it. You could have money, status, and a great life, but if your behavior around her feels uncertain, overly eager, or approval-seeking, she reads that first. And women don't respond to what you have on paper. They respond to how you carry yourself during interactions with them. You see, the core problem is you're trying to be chosen instead of being selective. This is the deeper issue underneath all of it. When you give off low value, what you're really communicating is, I hope you like me, instead of, I'm deciding if you fit into my life. Because when a man is trying to be chosen, he starts modifying himself, filters what he says, plays it safe, avoids anything that might risk rejection. And ironically, that behavior creates the exact outcome he's trying to avoid, rejection through ghosting. So what do? Well, once you've given off low value signals and she starts pulling away, you can't talk your way out of it. There's no need to attempt to show her who you really are. That never works. Because value is not explained, it's demonstrated. So your best move right now is to stop. Stop over communicating, stop trying to fix it, give her space. And more importantly, shift your behavior moving forward. High value is not arrogance. It's not pretending you don't care. It's calm, grounded certainty. And most importantly, you're okay with losing her if she's not aligned. You see, this doesn't mean memorizing tactics. Instead, shift your mindset from, how do I get her to like me, to, does this interaction even deserve my energy? Because that one question will clean up most of your behavior automatically. If you fix how you carry yourself, how you communicate, how you value your own time and attention, you won't reduce ghosting. You'll change the type of responses that you get from her, entirely. Reason 4, she found a better option. Here's the reality. You're not competing against no one. You're actually competing against her options, her past experiences, the emotional standard that she's already used to. And if someone else creates a stronger emotional experience than you did, basically she's not going to, she doesn't need to explain anything, right? She just shifts her attention to that person. And the shift will look to you like ghosting. While you're texting her, she might be replying to another guy who's making her laugh, talking to some guy who already set the date confidently with her, thinking about someone who challenged her in a way that felt more exciting. She doesn't sit there comparing you side by side necessarily, but her brain just gravitates towards the interaction that feels the strongest. The one that creates the most emotion wins her attention. The rest will fade out. Think about it. When you're talking to multiple people, who do you prioritize? The one who feels easiest and most predictable, or the one who makes the interaction feel alive? That's exactly how she's deciding too. You see, most men get caught up here mentally. They start asking, what does he have that I don't? Why does she choose him over me? And that line of thinking, if you ask me, is weak. It keeps you reactive because it puts her in the position of selector and you in the position of candidate. And that's not where you want to operate from. A better question is, what kind of experience was I creating? Because that's the only thing you actually control. So once she shifted her attention, your job is not to compete. Just step back completely. When you pull back and stop feeding her attention, two things will happen. She either continues with the other option or she circles back to you. Now, if she comes back though, don't reward that behavior, because a lot of men get excited when she reappears and they begin to give her full access again. That's a mistake. I need you to slow it down if she comes back. Don't ignore her, but don't overinvest either. Instead of worrying about competition, focus on becoming harder to replace. That means you create stronger emotional interactions. You communicate with clarity and direction. You don't linger in endless texting. You lead instead of waiting. The goal is to make the experience of interacting with you stand out. You see, women don't ghost the man who creates the strongest emotional pull. They only ghost the one who feels optional. Reason 5, you fail to escalate. So this is one of the most frustrating scenarios for men because basically on the surface, everything looked like it was going well. She was replying and engaging and there was some level of chemistry and, you might even have been talking consistently for days, sometimes weeks. And then all of a sudden she just disappears. What happened? You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't do the right things. Yes, that's what I think. You see, escalation is simply progress or progression, moving the interaction forward from one stage to the next, from matching to texting, texting to phone call to date, and date to deeper connection. If you stay stuck in one stage too long, especially texting, the interaction starts to lose energy because attraction needs movement. Without movement, it feels like you're going nowhere. And when it feels like that, basically she checks out. You see, I know a lot of guys hesitate to escalate for one reason: rejection, right? You don't want to ask her out too soon because you might get a no, etc. But you see, the problem is the perfect moment doesn't exist. And while you are waiting, attraction is slowly declining. Texting is a low investment environment. It's easy, it's casual. It doesn't require much emotional commitment from her side. And so it means that she can easily engage with you without actually investing. And if you stay in that place for too long, two things happen. First, the novelty will wear off. And second, you'll become part of her routine instead of something that she actually looks forward to. So how should you respond if you fail to escalate early? You have one clean move. Stop the small talk and reintroduce direction. Something like, hey, we've been talking for a bit. Can we actually meet? Are you free this week? Now, pay attention. This will do two things. It forces clarity and it repositions you as someone who leads instead of lingers. Now she either engages or she doesn't. But either way, you've moved out of a gray area. If she's already ghosted, at that point, you don't chase with multiple messages. You can send one clean re-entry that introduces direction. And if there's no response, leave it be. Because repeated attempts don't increase attraction, they decrease respect, right? There's a balance here. Escalating too fast will feel forced, and not escalating at all feels directionless. So the key is always timing. You move things forward when there's enough engagement, and not when everything feels perfect, because waiting for perfect usually means waiting too long. Women don't ghost when things are moving forward. They ghost when things feel stuck. Remember that. Reason 6, she was never that interested to begin with. Sometimes she didn't ghost because you made any mistake or did anything wrong. She simply ghosted because her interest level was never high enough to sustain the interaction in the first place. And if you don't understand this, you will waste a lot of time just trying to solve situations that were never yours to solve. Low interest is not always obvious in the beginning, you see. In fact, sometimes it looks like mild engagement. But there's a difference between participation and investment. You see, participation is easy. It costs her nothing. Investment, on the other hand, requires effort, curiosity, intention. And when her interest is low, she stays in participation mode. And now you might be wondering, well, if she wasn't interested, why didn't she just say so? Well, it's simple, because people avoid and like to avoid uncomfortable situations and conversations. Ghosting is the path of least resistance. It's not necessarily respectful, but it's common. And if you're waiting for clear rejection every time, you're going to misread a lot of situations. Have you ever seen people just respond to other people to be polite? They didn't hate them, they just weren't excited. That's exactly the energy she's operating from. Now imagine that person keeps trying to pull more out of you. At some point, you'll just disengage, and that's ghosting. Low interest always leaves cues, trust me. They're just not as loud as rejection. When you recognize low interest, your move is simple. Stop investing. Redirect your energy, because the moment you stop over-investing in low interest situations, two things will happen. You preserve your self-respect, and you create space for higher quality interactions with someone else. Walking away early is not losing, it's filtering. It's choosing not to invest in situations that don't meet your standards. And that's how it always should be. I hope this video gave you value. If it did, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is Jessica OS. I will definitely catch you in the next video. Cheers.